Hi, I'm Gary White for Central Kentucky Television. I'm here with Marion County Sheriff Jimmy Clements. We're going to be talking about scams.
Yes.
And I know the Sheriff's Department gets to hear a lot about all these different scams that are going on out there. There's a lot of different ones. We're going to tell you some information about some of the ones to be very careful about. But it seems like a lot of these scams are particularly geared towards the elderly.
Yes, they are. And for the most part, that's what we see when people contact us about different things they're getting. The most recent one, and we discussed this before we went on the air here, but was where an elderly person receives a phone call from a grandchild, and they claim to be in trouble somewhere and they need money immediately in order to get out of trouble, or they're acting like maybe they're in, getting ready to go to jail or something, need money to get out of that, and it upsets the grandparent where they feel like they immediately got to send this money to them. So that's a good one that we've had here recently.
So it seems like a lot of scams are set up so that something happens immediately.
Yes, and that's one of the pitfalls of what they try to do with the elderly is put that pressure on them that they feel like they, you need to do this now because the time's wasting basically, and we've got to get this done. So and again, the elderly feel that pressure, and especially if they think it's a grandchild or someone related to them needs help, that they go ahead and make a mistake of sending the money. So that's the one thing we tell folks is do not feel pressured to do something. Do your homework and check that if your granddaughter Susie is in Florida and she is in trouble, check with your son or daughter and find out what's going on with them before you send them $500. Right. Because my old rule of thumb with the scam people is if they make 100 calls, or let's say if they make 10 calls a day and they get one person to bite, they've made their money for the day. It was worth their time. So with that too, with the elderly is they try to prey on the elderly that they feel, if they can find out somebody that's lonesome or want somebody to talk to, and they get them on the phone and they really just set them up and get to feeling comfortable with them and make them feel like that they're their friend when they're not. They're there to try to scam them out of, their money.
Yes. Now, there are kind of all different kinds of scams, obviously. We're talking about one with the grandparents and the phone calls. And you also have been seeing recently some mail scams. Correct?
Yes, and that actually not recently, but for quite some time. In fact, my father had received a mailing claiming that he was a prize winner, and I forgot, I want to say it was like $3,000. And sometimes they'll even send a bogus check to kind of set it up too. And they ask for the folks to go to their bank and withdraw money and get a cashier's check, send it to them, or transfer money somehow, and there's nothing at the other end of it for them. So all kinds of scams. These people sit around all day long and think of new and better ways for them to be able to manipulate people in order to get their money.
How about through emails and through the computer? Are you seeing much? Do you get many complaints about those kind of scams as well?
Not really. That's something I haven't seen. I feel sure they're out there, but
yeah.
We haven't seen that much of it.
Yeah.
But generally, again, I just hate to be redundant with it, but we keep seeing it geared towards the elderly.
Right.
That's a big thing.
So what would you, for those out there, what would you say are some clear indicators that the person on the other end of the line or at the mail is trying to scam you?
Well, again, being pressured into something, and I brought some notes here of different things that we see, and some tricks of the trade. Don't fall for these. Is that you must pay something to win something. If somebody's going to give you something, you're not going to have to pay for it. But they think that, okay, if you pay us $50, we're going to give you $500. It just don't happen. And the old rule of thumb also is if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So don't fall for it. Call us at the sheriff's office. We'll be glad to contact some of those, because just like with my father's situation, I actually called the number that they had listed, and I finally got through to it, and it was in British Columbia. And a gentleman with a foreign accent answered, and I talked to him, and I just kind of try to go along with it and set it up. And once I told him who we were, that we were with the Marion County Sheriff's Office and that we were looking into this, click, he hung the phone up. We tried to call back, we don't get an answer. So that's some of the tricks of the trade there, but again, don't fall for these, is that you must decide now. We need an answer right now. We can't call back later, we need the answer now. If you get something like that, don't go with it. We need your credit card number, your social security number, a bank routing number, or your account number. Don't give out any personal information. They'll sometimes tell the elderly, don't tell anybody else in your family about this. This is between you and I. No one else needs to know that. Again, that's a big indicator. Telling you that the initial investment will be well worth the risk. Again, $50 for $500. It just doesn't, the math doesn't work there. Again, don't provide any personal information or written information or references. And something too that we see, that they'll get frustrated with the person they're talking to when they keep repeatedly getting no, because they'll be persistent about this. But they'll even get to the point to where they'll make the person feel like they're stupid if they don't do this. So again, don't fall for it. And the promise that your prize is either in the mail or will meet you with the prize or something like that, again, it's just not going to happen. I always say, I hope I'm not telling people out here something that, there's $1 million waiting at the end of the rainbow for them and they pass up on it. But honestly, if it's there, somebody's going to show up either with a check or the balloons like the Publishers Clearinghouse, right, and giving you a check. They're not going to tell you, send me money, send me your information in order to get this check.
Right. And speaking of like the Publishers Clearinghouse, some of these scams try to use what are legitimate agencies, I mean that actually is a legitimate agency, in order to convince you that they are legitimate themselves, and they're not. You know? And I know one recently that I was hearing about was where they were saying that somebody won, but they had to pay the taxes up front.
Yeah.
And that's never the case either, right?
No, that's not the case. I mean, again, they're just that one little mechanism they're trying to coax out of you in order to get it, and it just doesn't happen. And again, they get better and better at it all the time. They're looking for new ways to do this, and again, I mean, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
And if they're asking for money up front, never do it.
No.
Wait till you get yours and then give them something.
Exactly. I mean, if there's a problem with it on the other end of it, I feel sure they'll be patient enough to wait for you to send them the money after you've got your prize.
Now, some of these scams, too, we've been talking about money, and obviously that's the end goal for all these scams, but you're mentioning that sometimes they'll ask for your address, your age, your social security number, and that way they may be actually going towards more of an identity theft situation.
Identity theft, and that's true. And that's something we've seen with the deal where the grandparents are being called about, granddaughter Susie's in Florida in trouble, is that they know names, too. And how they get that, of course, I'm not certain, but they may call and said, well, Miss Russell or Miss Wilson or whatever, and this is Susie, and they know they've got a granddaughter named Susie. So somewhere, either through like the social media, like Facebook or Twitter or whatever, that everybody puts a lot of personal information out there. Again, maybe not their social security number, but names out there that these criminals can associate you with this person. And when Grandma hears that call that this is Susie, she thinks it is Susie.
Right.
Okay? And one of the recent ones that I'd received a call about told me, said, I knew her voice and I knew she doesn't call me Grandma, she calls me this. So she knew her grandma nickname, and she knew it wasn't her, and she called me and said she was, what was going on. So,
wow. And also, like you were saying with that social media, they can get your address potentially, because somebody might put in there, somewhere along the line, and your birth date. And if they're giving you some of this information that's still not a sign that they know.
Right, but
that
it makes
they're
them feel a
legitimate.
little more comfortable
Right.
that we can associate with this person and we know what's going on with them. So again, it drops that comfort level down. You relax and let your guard down, and next thing you know, you're sending them a check or cash or whatever.
How many of these different scams do you think you get notified about on a regular basis, weekly, daily?
Oh, I mean, it's not daily. I'd say throughout a year period, we probably get close to a dozen scams, something like that. And again, they vary from a mailing to a phone call. But again, we go what you was talking earlier about identity theft. We see such a bigger increase with that each year. Again, the information's out there, and people somehow get it, and they're using that. So again, be very careful when you're at your ATM. Protect your PIN numbers. Don't keep the PIN with the card, things like that. Don't give out any information over the phone unless you know what you're doing with that. And if you feel uncomfortable with it, don't do it. Just wait.
And don't make a very easy number your PIN number either.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
One that's easily identified with you. With identity theft, what are just some quick tips that you can give for how people can help protect themselves on a regular
Again,
basis?
just documents that you have at home that you may have regularly tossed in the mail that may have some information on it. Invest in a little cheap shredder to shred those documents. Again, not keeping items together like your pen and your cards together like that, and just be very frugal with it. Keep it with you, and if it's not of any use to you, go ahead and shred those documents where somebody can't get in there and get in your garbage or whatever and go through them.
And do contact the sheriff's department in your county too, because they can keep track of what's going on, right?
Oh yeah, contact us if you have any questions at all. Feel free to contact us, and we'll listen to you and see what we can do to help you or point you in the right direction on something. And and while we're talking about this too, you talked about different agencies. We get calls quite often too about wanting to know if we're soliciting funds. The sheriff's office is, but we hear that for rescue, fire, some of the local businesses, that somebody is going around doing things like that. And we're not. I mean, we just did a calendar for the sheriff's office this year. We just did a calendar, and there was some solicitation through that. But I provided the documentation to this business that we worked with to get to the business, so they knew it was coming from our office. Something we see too in the community, again, is individuals that will ride up and knock on your door talking to you. And a typical one that we see quite often is wanting to come in and clean your carpets, things like that. And usually there's 2 or 3 people with them. Most of the time they're from all the time they're from out of county. And what we see with that is they try to get in the home and act like they're doing a carpet cleaning type thing, maybe a demonstration, or we can help clean your house up. And while they've got that person occupied, the second or third party is either in their medicine cabinet or trying to get something out of the home while the person's preoccupied with the salesman. So if you're uncomfortable with it, don't let anyone in your house like that. And again, feel free to call us at the sheriff's office, and we'll come out and talk to them and see what's going on with them.
That's another thing too with medicines and prescriptions and stuff of that
Yes.
nature. There's a lot of money out there for people who get their hands on prescriptions that aren't their own. So that's something too for particularly the elderly, because they are more inclined to have a lot of prescriptions, to be careful with that kind of information as well.
That's exactly right. Don't let people in your house that you don't know that even though they might be selling you the sunshine. I mean, it's not always that way. I mean, they don't have your best interest at heart.
Well, thank you very much.
We're glad to do that, and I hope this information's good for some of the folks out here to be able to maybe not get scammed out of their money.
That's right. And just be careful. Never give money up front. Always get something before you give money. That's the way to do it, right?
Exactly.
That's right. All right, this has been Gary White for Central Kentucky Television. I've been here with Marion County Sheriff Jimmy Clements.